Paul Krugman, welcome to our show. You just arrived on Friday. We all have seen the political murder of the online right-wing influencer of MAGA, Charlie Kirk. Has America entered a new age of violence?
We have had a lot of political violence for a long time. Actually, basically my entire adult life, we've had assassinations, political violence. So we may have more, but it's not clear that this is really a departure from what, unfortunately, is kind of an American tradition.
Yeah. What will be the impact, do you think, on the country of this political murder?
Well, first of all, it's not clear that it was a political murder. The motivations of the killer, of the alleged killer, are very confused. You cannot find a clear ideology. It was certainly not a left-winger who shot Kirk.
President Trump was very clear about it.
I know. He was very clear before they had anybody, even had a suspect. So, no, so the political impact is not going to come, it's going to come from the attempt to politicize this by MAGA, by Trump and his allies. But I'm not sure that that will stick. I think it's just not, there's so little reason to think of this as a political act as opposed to just it was almost more like a celebrity killing than it was a political assassination.
Yeah, you said MAGA, President Trump, is making this into a political murder. Why? What is the motivation for that?
Oh, they want to suppress dissent. And they also want to distract from other things. I mean, even the Epstein case is still, the files are still there. It's very clear that Trump is at least much closer to Epstein than people wanted to admit. And then the economy. Economic sentiment in the United States is about as bad now as it was at the worst of the inflation a few years ago.
Can you describe for us in detail what is happening to the U.S. economy? How are Americans faring? Because President Trump promised sort of, it'll be good, inflation will go down, the job market will be up, everything will be great.
No, he promised the prices would start coming down. Not just that inflation would come down, but that prices would fall, which obviously hasn't happened. We seem to be, it's a complicated situation, but it does look like we're simultaneously seeing inflation accelerate at least slightly, with more to come because the tariffs are working their way through. The deportations are going to be raising prices of farm products and other things. And we also seem to be seeing an economic slowdown, probably caused at least in part by the uncertainty created by all of these policies. So it's at least a mild case of stagflation.
If I can push back a little bit, we see maybe or not a political murder. We see an attack of Israel on Hamas in Qatar.
Yeah.
We see Russian drones flying into Poland. And still, the stock market is doing absolutely great in the US.
Yes, well, stock markets, the stock market has never been a good predictor. My old teacher and mentor, Paul Samuelson, said that the stock market had predicted 9 of the last 5 recessions. I mean, the stock market has never had really any useful informational content. And it's also true, Trump has cut taxes on corporations. So the stock market may be, to some extent, saying, oh, never mind GDP, our after-tax profits will be up. So I don't think I would not read too much into the markets.
So, okay, don't read too much into the markets. So if you look at the economy for the Americans, is your country going to a recession then? Is that what you are predicting?
It's not yet probably bad enough to meet the formal definition of a recession, which is a little complex, but it's a slowdown. What's actually remarkable about the United States right now is it's kind of frozen. We're not seeing mass layoffs, but we're seeing very low rates of hiring. So if you have your job, you're probably not at great risk. But if you're trying to get a job, if you're a young person starting out or somebody who happens to have been laid off, then it's actually already a very difficult economy.
So for young people just coming on the job market, it is getting more difficult?
Yes. Very difficult to get jobs.
Yeah.
That's very clear from official data and also from private surveys.
So you had a column in the New York Times till December last year, 2024. And apparently President Trump was one of the readers of your column because recently he tweeted on X, Paul Krugman of the New York Times has been predicting doom and gloom ever since my great election success in 2016. We have the best market in history because of this Trump deranged bum. Yeah. Sue him. Or sue them, actually, he said, the New York Times maybe as well.
So he's unaware that I'm no longer at the New York Times. People should be reading my Substack. But also, I mean, I consider it an honor.
Are you
I've actually added deranged bum to my profile.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you a doom and gloom economist?
No. I mean, I made a brief recession call in 2016, which I retracted after 3 days. Mm-hmm. But you know, if you never make mistakes, then you're not taking enough risks. And I have not joined the doom and gloom about the current U.S. economy. I think it's troubled. I think Trump is damaging it, but I don't see it as that terrible things are happening in the short run.
Right.
The long run damage is much bigger.
Let's talk about us, Europe, the Netherlands. We were punished by President Trump by import tariffs.
Yes.
We're paying now 15% extra, which is actually, for Europe, we've done really well because India is paying 50%.
Yeah.
So how do you look upon the European economy and the Dutch economy specifically, because we have big trade going on with your country, the US?
You really do need to have some sense of perspective. If we look at the European Union as a whole, exports to the United States are about 4% of your GDP. Exports of goods, which are the stuff that's facing tariffs, is only about 3%. So that's not trivial, but it's not as if the U.S. tariffs are going to make or break the European economy. There's a kind of delusion of grandeur on the part of the United States, thinking that everybody totally depends on our market, and we don't. The European Union is a superpower economically that is almost as big as the United States. So this is not that big a deal.
Are the leaders of the European Union, of the countries in the Union, aware of the fact that they are a superpower and not using their power in this fight against President Trump?
They are. Europe does have a problem of kind of learned helplessness. It does tend to not act as the power that it really is. Dealing with Trump, it's not clear what exactly should be done from the European side. Actually, at the moment, it's not clear that you need to even retaliate because Trump is in so much trouble domestically over his policies that the whole thing may fall apart of its own. There's a quite substantial chance that about 2/3 of Trump's tariffs will be ruled illegal within the United States, which they clearly are. The only question is whether the courts are willing to say that. So I'm not sure that there's in some ways that you want to sit back and wait and see if Trumponomics self-destructs.
Yeah. In your last New York Times column you wrote, "What I believe is that resentment can put bad people in power. In the long run, it can't keep them there." What did you mean by this sentence?
That at a certain point, people stop. I mean, we worry, obviously, about authoritarian threats to democracy. But as long as there are elections, as long as the people get a voice, people were angry at a lot of things in November. But now, this guy is there. And they're expecting him to actually run the country, which he's doing a very bad job at. And that is already, we can already see that there's been massive backlash against Trump's policies.
Is that also the sentiment within his own party, the Republican Party? Because it looks to me that he has huge support.
Well, he has huge support from from Congress, because they're afraid. They know that to challenge Trump is an end to their political career, that in a Republican primary, to be anti-Trump is doom. Even among Republican voters, there's now a substantial skepticism. There are essentially no issue on which Trump has a positive approval rating. The public dislikes all of his policies, even the ones that they think of as, anti-immigrant policies. Support for immigration in the United States is the highest it has ever been. So there really is massive rejection of Trumpism on the part of the U.S. public, which is not reflected in Congress, but eventually should matter.
Midterm elections next year, November. Do you dare to predict anything? What will happen there?
Well, if the elections are reasonably fair, which is a question, right? We are seriously worried about election interference. But if they're reasonably fair, the House of Representatives should be a blowout for the Democrats. Democrats have been outperforming in special elections by about 15 points relative to 2024. The House should be Democratic after the next election.
I'm surprised that you're saying this, because what I hear is that people say there is no focus within the Democratic Party and there's no pushback against Trump, or not much.
Oh, we worry a lot about the leadership. But if you actually look, there's very low approval of the Democratic Party. And at the same time, people say that they will vote for Democrats in the election. So, you can say leadership is weak, but better than those guys.
Okay. Next week you will talk to the Minister of Finance in the Netherlands, Elke. What would be your advice to him if he asks you how to deal with the current government of President Trump?
I think that for now, what Europe does is stay relatively cool. I mean, there was a deal, except it's not even clear what was in the deal. Europe didn't actually promise to give money to the United States or anything like that. And as I say, at this point, maybe give it some time and see if Trump's trade policy in particular self-destructs.
What is your best advice to the president of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde?
Well, this has very little to do with the United States. So, I mean, the ECB has different responsibilities, although obviously these things interact. And when I look at the ECB, what strikes me is how relatively simple its problems are compared with those facing the Federal Reserve. In the United States, we have both a downturn and an inflationary shock coming from the crazy policies. Europe looks like a model of calm. Europe has a lot of long-run problems of productivity, technology, but inflation is more or less at target. Employment still looking pretty good. So I bet Jerome Powell would love to switch jobs with Christine Lagarde right now.
Also because his independence is constantly under threat because of the president attacking him.
Yes, that's what we have, and that's actually on the monetary side. That's the scary place in the world right now is the United States, because we do have an attempt to politicize a highly successful independent central bank, but not the kind of success that Trump wants.
One last question to you personally. You and your wife are here. Your wife is Robin Wells, a very famous economist in her own right. You were talking about the fear of Republican leadership in Congress. Are you fearful about going back to your own country because of what you say and write about Trump?
A little bit, not much yet. I don't think we're at the point now where I would be under personal threat, but it's not inconceivable. And look, I have European academic friends who have to go back and forth. They travel with burner phones, right? Because we've had enough incidents where even college professors have been stopped and they find that there are anti-Trump texts on their phones and they're arrested. So that it's crazy. So no, don't want to minimize this. Things could go very bad.
Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you safe travels with your wife back to New York City.
Thank you.
Bedankt voor het kijken. Vond je dit een goed gesprek? Vergeet niet te abonneren of te liken. En reageren kan natuurlijk ook in de comments. Oh ja, Heb je dit al gezien?
En toen draaide Trump
Ja.
opeens.
Ja.
Dus we weten ook dat Trump ook wel snapt dat je niet te gek moet doen met die financiële markten, omdat dat hele systeem in de Verenigde Staten daarvan
Dus
afhankelijk
jij zegt
is.